While Americans fight for the spotlight, is Canada actually outsmarting its noisy neighbor? Discover the shocking ways Canada is beating the US at its own game and why it's driving Americans crazy. The Quality of Life Showdown. Forget the slogans, just look at the numbers. Canada consistently ranks higher than the US in global quality of life indexes, happiness, healthcare access, and social mobility. Canadians don't just have universal healthcare, they have less student debt, safer streets, and a longer life expectancy. These aren't just statistics, they're lived realities that have Americans asking, are we falling behind? But behind the numbers are real people and stories. In Canadian cities, parents can afford to take their kids to the doctor without worrying about a surprise bill. University graduates don't begin their adult lives buried under mountains of debt. Neighborhoods in places like Vancouver, Calgary, and Halifax remain safer and more tightly knit, with crime rates that put much of the US to shame. While no country is perfect, many Canadians genuinely sleep easier knowing that life's basics aren't a gamble. Perhaps what stings most for Americans is that Canada's edge isn't built on bravado or boasts. It's the result of quiet, collective decisions, prioritizing health, safety, and well-being for everyone, not just the privileged. As Americans grapple with growing divides and a system that seems to reward the loudest voices, Canada's low-key approach exposes the weaknesses of a dream that now feels out of reach for millions. And while politicians in Washington argue over ideology, Canadian leaders, left, right, and center, are forced by their voters to maintain a working social contract. When crises strike, from pandemics to wildfires, the country has a proven track record of pulling together rather than tearing apart. It's not just about policies, it's a different mindset, a national willingness to invest in the common good rather than endless competition. Immigration, attracting the world's best. While the US debates walls and bans, Canada quietly opens its doors to skilled immigrants and refugees from across the globe. The result? A diverse, thriving workforce that's fueling innovation, economic growth, and cultural vibrancy. Canada's points-based immigration system and fast-track residency paths are the envy of many. As more frustrated Americans look north for opportunity, resentment grows, and so does Canada's reputation as a land of second chances. This welcoming spirit has given Canada a powerful demographic advantage. Cities like Toronto, Montreal, and Vancouver have become global melting pots, buzzing with languages, cuisines, and fresh ideas. Tech companies, universities, and hospitals attract talent from every continent, strengthening Canada's place as a world-class leader in research and business. Immigrants aren't just surviving, they're leading, founding startups, and shaping the nation's identity for the next century. What's more, the Canadian system is seen by many experts as a model for the future, emphasizing integration, language training, and support for families. This stands in sharp contrast to the constant gridlock, political fear-mongering, and uncertain legal status that plagues US immigration policy. As the US sees its international reputation suffer, Canada's brand as a welcoming nation becomes a magnet for innovators, students, and dreamers. But it's not all just about economics or global rankings. On a personal level, new Canadians often speak of a deep gratitude and loyalty to their adopted country. They're proud to call Canada home, and many become the most passionate defenders of Canadian values, diversity, peace, and opportunity. While debates about immigration rage south of the border, Canada's quiet revolution is transforming the face and the future of a nation. Healthcare, the great divide. Few things trigger Americans more than the word healthcare. In Canada, healthcare is a right, not a privilege. Canadians never worry about bankruptcy from medical bills or skipping medication to afford rent. This difference has become a major sore spot in the US debate, with millions of Americans crossing the border for affordable care. The result? Quiet envy, internet arguments, and a growing realization that Canada's approach works, no matter how loud the critics get. For families across Canada, the freedom to access care without fearing financial ruin is life-changing. New parents welcome their babies in hospitals, knowing that every checkup, vaccination, and emergency will be covered. Seniors and people with chronic conditions can focus on healing instead of fighting insurance companies. This universal safety net doesn't just prevent tragedy, it strengthens families and communities for generations. Even in times of crisis, like the COVID-19 pandemic, Canada's system proved its resilience. While the US faced overcrowded ERs, insurance confusion, and millions losing coverage, Canadians received testing, treatment, and vaccines without fear of cost. Though the system is not perfect, there are wait times and funding debates. Most Canadians fiercely defend it. Surveys consistently show a high satisfaction rate compared to the frustration and anxiety so many Americans experience. Politically, this has become a dividing line between the two nations. In the US, healthcare debates often devolve into shouting matches about socialism and freedom. In Canada, it's a matter of basic decency and human rights. Americans who visit or move to Canada frequently express shock and relief at how simple and fair the process feels. In the quiet details of daily life, this difference is transformative. And it's a big reason why so many Americans wish their country would follow suit. Economy and innovation. Smart, sustainable, successful. Canada's economy is often written off as smaller, but it's increasingly seen as smarter, prioritizing sustainability, social responsibility, and a strong middle class. From green energy to fintech and AI, Canadian cities are punching above their weight. While the US faces growing inequality and political gridlock, Canada's stable policies and diverse economy are quietly setting new global standards, fueling a slow but steady migration of both talent and capital northward. The Canadian approach to economic policy is refreshingly pragmatic. Rather than betting everything on a few mega corporations or tax cuts for the ultra-wealthy, Canada invests in education, infrastructure, and public research. Programs supporting entrepreneurs, small businesses, and green technologies are seen as vital investments, not burdens. This long-term thinking is helping Canadian companies lead in fields like renewable energy, biotech, and digital finance. At the same time, Canada has avoided many of the economic pitfalls that have tripped up its southern neighbor. There's no student loan crisis spiraling out of control, no mass evictions from predatory mortgage schemes, and a social safety net that catches people when they fall. Canadian banks are some of the most stable in the world, thanks to strict regulations learned from past recessions. Even during global downturns, Canada's economy has shown remarkable resilience. Crucially, this economic strength hasn't come at the expense of the environment. Canada's ambitious targets for carbon reduction, clean water, and sustainable forests are the envy of much of the developed world. While America debates climate change, Canada is already investing in the green jobs and industries of the future. The result? More opportunity, less anxiety, and a growing global influence that Americans are finding hard to ignore. Global reputation, quiet power on the world stage. Americans are used to being the center of attention, but globally, Canada's reputation as a peaceful, cooperative, and trustworthy nation is winning hearts and deals. From peacekeeping to diplomacy, Canadians are trusted mediators in global crises. International students and investors choose Canada not just for opportunity, but for its values. For many, this quiet power is more appealing than the loud, unpredictable style of US politics. Canada's history as a peacekeeper is not just a relic of the past. It's a living brand that continues to open doors and build alliances. From the United Nations to humanitarian missions in Africa and the Middle East, Canadian troops, diplomats, and aid workers are seen as honest brokers. This reputation makes it easier for Canada to negotiate trade deals, attract global conferences, and win the confidence of international partners. The Canadian effect extends beyond governments and corporations. Travelers wearing a Canadian flag are often greeted with warmth and curiosity around the world, a reflection of the nation's reputation for politeness, tolerance, and openness. This soft power has real economic benefits too, drawing tourists, students, and skilled workers who see Canada as a safe and welcoming destination, even as anti-immigrant rhetoric rises elsewhere. While the US sometimes struggles with negative perceptions about arrogance, interventionism, or instability, Canada's steady, understated approach is quietly setting the standard for what global leadership can look like in the 21st century. In a world hungry for stability and honesty, Canada's rise is a source of pride at home and growing envy abroad. The backlash. Why Americans hate to admit it. This success story hasn't gone unnoticed. Online forums, news comment sections, and even political debates are filled with Americans expressing everything from denial to open jealousy. It's not just about maple syrup and hockey. It's about seeing a neighbor succeed at the things America claims to do best: opportunity, fairness, and freedom. For some, the realization that Canada is quietly winning feels like a personal insult. There's a cultural undercurrent here that can't be ignored. For generations, Americans have been raised to believe theirs is the greatest country in the world. The land of the free, home of the brave narrative is hardwired into the national psyche. But as more Americans visit, study, or move to Canada, they're confronted with an uncomfortable truth. Maybe the American dream is alive and well, just a little farther north. This realization sometimes provokes anger, denial, or even conspiracy theories. Popular pundits blame Canada's success on geography, luck, or US subsidies. But deep down, many Americans are asking hard questions about why their system feels so broken. Meanwhile, Canadians tend to respond with humility, humor, or the occasional cheeky meme. They don't need to boast. The results speak for themselves. For some, this shift is an existential crisis. The idea that America could lose its place at the top of the world order is unsettling. But for others, Canada's rise is an inspiration, a model of what's possible when a country values compassion, pragmatism, and collective well-being. The quiet war may never make headlines, but its impact is changing lives on both sides of the border. Conclusion. The real North American dream. So is Canada really winning the war against the US? The numbers and the stories say yes. While Americans argue and posture, Canadians continue to build a life many Americans secretly want. And that's why, despite the jokes and denial, Canada's rise is making waves no one can ignore. Ultimately, the real victory isn't about gloating or rivalry. It's about what people experience every day. In neighborhoods across Canada, newcomers and old-timers alike enjoy safer streets, better access to health and education, and a stronger sense of belonging. This is what the real North American dream looks like, one rooted in fairness, support, and opportunity for all. Canada's quiet revolution reminds the world that progress doesn't always roar. Sometimes, the biggest changes happen in the small choices. A government investing in public health, a city welcoming new families, a student choosing to study without fear of debt. While the US continues its noisy debates, Canadians keep moving forward together. So the next time you hear a story about the American dream, remember there's another dream being lived, quieter, but just as powerful. Like, share, and subscribe for more bold comparisons, hidden truths, and international stories you won't hear anywhere else. Comment below, what do you think Canada does better than the US? Or do you think it's all hype?